Hi guys, welcome to what I think is a very sad day for cars because Ford has just announced that they are killing off 5 of their cars. Basically, the only vehicle that they'll be building, at least here in the United States, is going to be the Mustang. Thank God they're keeping that.
Yep.
But they're getting rid of these vehicles. The Fiesta, the CMax, the Focus, the Taurus, the Fusion. Now, obviously, Ford's reason is they're going to cut these vehicles, which are considered, it's a nice way to put it, is losers. They're losing
market share, they're losing sales.
They're losing sales, and they're going to invest in SUVs, crossovers, and of course trucks.
Yeah, which is a good thing for truckers.
Yeah, well, Mr. Trucky guy over here, this is Mr. Truck Jr. Really need to get you a cowboy hat.
Thanks. First of all, this is a big decision by Ford.
Massive decision. These are 5 cars that will not come back.
These are the 5 cars that Ford decided to discontinue in the very near future. Right, within the next year or two?
Within the next 2 years, by 2022, these cars will no longer be available, period.
Rest in peace, cars.
Rest in peace.
By the way, guys, let us know what you think.
Yes.
Put the comments down below. Let us know your opinion on this news, first of all. Your opinion on why these cars weren't successful. So we want to hear from you as well.
I think Andre would agree with me. A lot of these vehicles do need to go away and or be replaced. But to outright kill them and then replace them with SUVs and crossovers, it's sort of unexpected. So let's talk about this a little bit. First of all, a lot of this is opinion. It's based on my opinion and Andre's opinion. I've driven every single one of these, and some of these vehicles are somewhat irreplaceable. Let me explain that. Andre, did you get a chance to drive the Fiesta ST?
Yes, I did.
Would you not agree that that is one of the more enjoyable small cars that you can drive, especially for the price and everything else?
I remember the week I had with the car as if it was yesterday. It was several years ago, and it's basically like a little go-kart because it has an amazing turbocharged engine. Yes, it's small, right? And that's the thing about the Fiesta, right? That car works in Europe.
Yeah.
Or in older cities where narrow streets and just a lot of congestion.
Yeah.
But here in the open stretches of America, especially in the West, that car doesn't work quite as well.
But it's fun to drive, it's economical, and yeah, okay, it's not as utilitarian as some of the, especially like the Fit from Honda.
Yeah.
That is an extremely utilitarian car, and the Fiesta never was by comparison. But still, I mean, it was a great car. The ST was an amazing car, and out of here, gone. So the Fiesta last year sold a total of 46,249. These are all from Good Car, Bad Car, these numbers. That's a drop of 5.2% from 2016. Now, consider this, the number of Fiestas sold versus any other vehicle it competed against, not great.
Yeah, I mean, it competes against, a lot of successful cars like, the Scion cars, the Corolla hatchback that just recently came out.
Yeah, the Honda Fit.
Yeah, the Honda Fit vehicles that sold in greater numbers.
Greater numbers, and in my mind, now this is once again my opinion, I don't know if you're going to agree with me on this, but Ford was taking on the Japanese in their turf. The Japanese build very good small cars. We all know this. Look at the Corolla sales and look at their overall reliability and everything else.
Honda Fit, etc.
Exactly. And I think that they just frankly couldn't quite compete. And by seeing this, Ford just, rather than saying we're going to try again and we're going to try to make it a better car, just said, no, we're going to get rid of it and we're going to focus on something else.
So let's go to the next one, which is the C-Max.
Yeah, now the CMax, for those of you who don't know, and judging by the numbers of sales, they definitely weren't that popular. The CMax was basically a competitor to the Toyota Prius. And that's because it sort of was the mixture of a tiny minivan mixed in with a Ford Focus, in terms of its overall size. And they had a hybrid and, of course, the plug-in hybrid. Now, Andre, you got to drive the plug-in hybrid, right?
Yeah, and I actually thought it was a really good car. I drove it around downtown Denver. I had limited time with the car, but it's, what I liked about it is the utility of it.
Yeah.
It was a little taller, a little bit bigger than the Focus, and the plug-in capability was there. So you could drive, I don't remember exact range, but
your electricity.
Yeah, you can drive on, 20, 30, 40 miles on electricity. You plug it in. There's a gas engine there that can help you out.
Sure.
I thought the concept was really good.
Yeah, me too, actually. I never thought that the car was very exciting. They tried to paint it kind of as a crossover, which it really wasn't either.
Those are not very impressive numbers.
No, not at all. For the year. And you know what's crazy? The CMax, in my mind, would be like the perfect car for Uber or Lyft. I mean, it really would be. There's lots of room in it, spacious, really, really efficient, fairly inexpensive. But these numbers don't indicate that people agree with me. Dropped 7.3%. And the bottom line is that this is another vehicle that, frankly, just was never developed any further. They built it in one way, at least for the United States, and they never advanced it any further. We'll get to that part in a minute as well, because we're moving up to the Taurus, which is a prime example of a vehicle that wasn't developed any further.
Right, so the Taurus is a big nameplate for Ford, actually. You know, it spans several decades of generations of cars.
Yeah, but there was a big disconnect. They stopped it for a while, and then they brought it back. So this is one of those cars that made a comeback, and when it initially did return, it was fairly popular. Mm-hmm. They still sell quite a few of them, but majority of them do go to fleets, police departments, and what have you.
Yeah, and of course they had an all-wheel drive version of the Taurus, most recently, SHO version of the Taurus. So they tried to breathe a little bit of life into it. But actually, we haven't driven a Taurus in a couple of years. So they're not in the fleets.
No, they're not in the fleets.
In the press fleets.
And, you know, there's a couple of reasons why. I think one of the main ones is they somehow managed to build a very big car that had the interior that didn't feel as comfortable as one of their smaller siblings.
Or as spacious as some other competitors, right?
Exactly. And it's a front-wheel drive bias, very large sedan. It did provide all-wheel drive. It did have the EcoBoost engine as an option. It had a lot of these things that were great, and at the same time, they never took it to the next level. They fell out of love with it, like they did with a lot of these cars.
Yeah, and that's a great point, because a lot of these cars, it seems like Ford kind of put on the back burner a while ago, maybe several years ago, and they said, you know, let's focus on the F-150. Let's do that with aluminum. And let's focus on the Explorer, and let's focus on all the other things. But all of a sudden, these sedans were kind of languishing there.
Now, the only reason that it's up to this number, 41,236 vehicles sold last year, in my mind, is because of fleet sales.
I agree, absolutely.
Police department rentals, what have you. Yeah. So that dropped 4%. Which is kind of amazing considering how old this platform is.
Still surviving.
It's ancient. It's an ancient platform. And Ford fell out of love with that car. And that brings us to the Focus, because the Focus, to me, was one of the most successful cars worldwide.
It was big sales, too. I mean, 158,000.
With the Ford Focus, this is another one where a lot of you guys who are enthusiasts of small, very powerful cars are probably a little upset, and I don't blame you, because the Focus ST and it's
now the RS.
And then the RS.
Yes.
They're going away. They're not coming back to the United States.
Except with one exception. Ford said the next generation of the Focus, which is a global car,
right?
So they unveiled it in Europe just recently. The active version of it is like a slightly off-roady version of it. So
it's kind of a crossover.
Yeah, kind of. Crossover-ish version of that hatchback is coming.
Yes.
It's coming.
Yeah.
So they're keeping the nameplate in that context.
In the context, it's actually going to be built in China, not in the United States. In fact, all of these vehicles that were either built here or in Mexico, well, no longer.
This is a very competitive segment.
Incredibly competitive segment.
Corolla sedan, the Civic, I mean the Nissan Versa, you can go on and on. Chevy Cruze is here. Every manufacturer is here.
The Ford Focus in some ways represents what's amazing about Ford and unfortunately what's wrong with Ford, in my mind. This is, once again, just my opinion, because this is a car that had many platforms that were really usable. All-wheel drive, turbocharged badass car, or even the front-wheel drive turbocharged badass car, or an everyday driver that was comfortable and, well, at least in the front seats. And, you know, you had a lot of options, and I thought it was pretty good looking. There were quality issues. We all know this. And frankly speaking, it just couldn't compete in the segment. It just cannot compete. So the good news is that at least the rest of the world sees the value in the Focus, and we will be getting a new Focus, but it's not going to be considered a hatchback small car. It's going to be considered it's a crossover, which is why I'm not including it on the list of cars that Ford will be building within the next few years, which is really one. and that's the Mustang.
I mean, the main point for Ford was the decision was based on financials, right?
Yeah.
So which vehicles are underperforming, and all of them have declined by fairly big percentages, up to 7% year to year.
And 21%.
That's the number one car that we put here.
Now the Ford Fusion is our number one car because it was never a car that I fell in love with, but it was a car I respected. The reason why? I've driven 6 different types. Seriously, the point is that this is one of those vehicles that had a lot of utility for Ford. It hit all these different markets at the same time, and they even had a Lincoln version of it as well.
Yeah, basically. The MKZ, yeah.
That's correct. So the question is, this car, which sold over 200,000 last year, really, is that going away? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you're selling 210,000 units of something, and you would think you could make that a very successful business.
You would think so, but at a 21.1% drop, that's huge. And that was last year. So I'm sure that the higher ups at Ford were scratching their chin and saying, okay, we can either invest billions and take this car and go to the next level with it, which is what we all assumed they were going to do, because in my mind, the Fusion was so much better than the Taurus. I thought they should just axe the Taurus altogether
and have the Fusion, yeah.
Exactly, and maybe enlarge the Fusion a little bit so it could kind of encompass what the Taurus used to sort of represent. Nope, they're not going to do it. It's gone. It's sad. This is a sad day. I think that some of these cars, especially the Fiesta ST, it was still one of my favorites. It's sort of a missed opportunity for Ford to continue and try to make it better. But let's talk about the positives. For every car that's missing or going away, there's going to be a SUV or a crossover or a truck that's going to replace it. So, a few things with that. Go ahead. Yeah.
But Ford is also focusing on electrification.
Yes, they are.
So they talked about electrifying the Mustang, even and also introducing new crossovers. Ford Bronco.
And its baby brother, which we don't know what it's going to be, but it's an off-road activity type vehicle.
Right, so there's a lot of excitement here still, I think, for a lot of people.
Well, let's talk about what's coming to replace these. So you could say, within reason, that you're going to have the Ford Ranger, the Ford Bronco, the Ford kind of sort of off-roadish crossover activity vehicle, whatever that's going to be.
And also there's a new EcoSport or EcoSport, I'm sorry.
That's right, EcoSport or EcoSport.
The new Escape is coming.
The new Escape.
So a lot of crossover, a lot of energies there. They just redesigned the Edge crossover. There's going to be a rear-wheel drive Explorer.
Yep.
I mean, they're really heavily investing in this area.
Yeah, now we don't have a lot of details for a lot of these vehicles, of course, but basically what we know is that, yes, they're going to stop building these, and those that are built in the United States and Mexico, those lines will be shut down. Will they be reopened with these other vehicles? It's a good chance.
Go back to tflcar.com for more news, views, and of course, lots more news.
That's right, and hey guys, fingers crossed, maybe we'll get some good stuff out of this.
Yep.
These are 5 cars that will not come back.
Right, within the next year or two?
Within the next 2 years, by 2022, these cars will no longer be available, period.
Rest in peace, cars.
Rest in peace.